What's up, guys? I want to take a look at Alex Smith and the impact that he's had on Washington football team since taking over in Week 9. If there's any fantasy implications we can take away from it, from his overall performance. You don't need to look at much to see that he's been an upgrade over Dwayne Haskins, but on the surface, there's not too much of a difference between him and Kyle Allen, who Smith obviously replaced in Week 9 after Allen unfortunately suffered a really brutal season-ending injury. But if there's one thing that stuck out to me and one thing that Smith has made his greatest impact on thus far, it's been deep ball passing. I decided to take a look at deep attempts for all three Washington quarterbacks this year, and this is data from PFF. These are targets that are 20 yards or more downfield, and as you can clearly see with this, Alex Smith has brought that element of the game back to life in that Washington offense, and I think it's really rejuvenated a lot of the upside that you see with a guy like Antonio Gibson as he heads on to the rest of his season and as we go into the fantasy playoffs. First 8 weeks of the season, Antonio Gibson only had 6 of the team's 20 carries inside the 5-yard line. Whereas since Week 9 and since Alex Smith has been at quarterback, he's had 6 of the team's 7 opportunities. It's really encouraging if you're a Gibson fantasy owner. You can reap the benefits of those goal line spots. Another cool thing here are carries for over 10 yards. First 8 weeks of the season, only 7.1% of Gibson's carries went for over 10 yards. But since Week 9 and since Smith has been under center, that rate has more than doubled, and 16.4% of all of Gibson's carries have gone for over 10 yards. Yes, I think Gibson having a bigger share of that Washington backfield has played a role, but I do think Alex Smith has been a big catalyst in creating less congestion up front for a guy like Gibson on these big runs and just bringing life to that offense as a whole. I think the biggest concern for many Antonio Gibson owners out there right now is still the splits with J.D. McKissic in that backfield and how largely dependent it's been on the game scripts in general to this point. I do think that there's a trend that both owners should still keep an eye on, though, going forward. That's the average amount of snaps per game J.D. McKissic has lined up in the slot or out wide. First 8 weeks of the year, he was at a little over 8 snaps a game in the slot or out wide, but starting in Week 9 when Alex Smith took over, he's been hovering around 20 snaps per game. This is a trend that Gibson and even McKissic owners should keep an eye on going forward. I wanted to get this out there before Washington takes on the Steelers defense in Week 13, but regardless of the outcome of the matchup or with how guys perform individually, I think these trends are the biggest thing to keep an eye on against Pittsburgh, because even though some of these Washington football team players may have tough fantasy matchups in Week 14 and beyond, I think if these trends were to continue and Alex Smith were to maintain this level of performance under center, they can really produce at a high level going into the fantasy playoffs.